Do the trashy pulp novels of the world have anything to offer? Are bestsellers all they're hyped up to be? The Terrible Book Club explores whether or not you really can judge a book by its cover or its ridiculous synopsis. If you've ever seen a book and thought, ugh, who's reading this? We probably are.
Hello and welcome to episode 118 of the Terrible Book Club. I'm Chris and this is Paris.
Hello.
This time we read Beach Read by Emily Henry. Honestly, this one resulted from us taking one look at the New York Times Bestsellers List and choosing the thing we thought we'd hate the most.
Yeah, essentially.
We're always asking how our bestsellers are what they're cracked up to be, and we kind of haven't done one in we did Midnight Sun counts. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
so
we did the Twilight one, but we wanted to sample. We wanted to see what else the bestsellers list had for us. We wanted to sample a different flavor from the bestseller cart as it rolled by. So we chose Beach Read, which was published last summer. So I want to say, can't remember if it was May 2020 or June 2020, but last year. If this is your first time listening to this show, what we do here at the Terrible Book Club is read books that we assume will be bad based on their cover, title, summary, or some combination of the three. Sometimes we read books that our patrons, listeners, or friends recommend. So, in general, we do the opposite of what most people do when they're in a bookstore or while they're browsing the internet for something to read. And usually this results in a disappointing read for us, but once in a while, we do actually end up liking the book. Content warnings for today, in addition to our usual barnyard language, include alcoholism, infidelity, sex, and cults. Again, somehow. I don't know. This is two cults in a row. Double cults.
You're not expecting it, and all of a sudden there's a cult, and you're in it, right? It's just how it works.
Yeah, you just wake up and, cult member. All right.
Just woke up this morning, I was in a cult. One of those days. All right. I'll do the back of the book and the characters and setting here, and then Paris will regale us with our summary of the entire story.
All right, so tell us, what does the back of Beach Read say, Chris?
Augustus Everett is an acclaimed author of literary fiction. January Andrews writes best-selling romance. When she pens a happily ever after, he kills off his entire cast. They're polar opposites. In fact, the only thing they have in common is that for the next 3 months, they're living in neighboring beach houses, broke and bogged down with writer's block. Until one hazy evening, one thing leads to another, and they strike a deal designed to force them out of their creative ruts. Augustus will spend the summer writing something happy, and January will pen the next great American novel. She'll take him on field trips worthy of any rom-com montage, and he'll take her to interview surviving members of a backwoods death cult, obviously. Everyone will finish a book and no one will fall in love. Really.
All right, well... I would put that down after the third sentence.
Not even the death cult grabs you?
I wouldn't get that far. I would have abandoned it by sentence 4. No, I'm sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I would have abandoned it after sentence 5, which is halfway through what Chris read. So.
All right, so for our setting and our characters here, this is set in North Bear Shores, Michigan. A lake town near the University of Michigan. Our characters are January Andrews, the protagonist, which really does sound kind of like some kind of fake porn star name. Just gotta say that. Augustus Everett does a little bit as well.
No, he's a Civil War general. He's
yeah, you're right.
General Augustus Everett.
Which side?
I mean.
We'll leave that up to you, listener. We have Gus's aunt, Pete / Posey, and her geologist wife, Maggie. Her name is really Posey, but she calls herself Pete because Posey is lame to her.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You have January's mom and dad. Do we ever get their names?
I think we get...
They're just mom and dad.
No,
for the
I
most
think
part.
they get dad's name at some point. I don't know if we get mom's name.
They're basically just mom and dad for most of the book, but you do
it
get...
It doesn't matter what their names are, really.
Yeah, you do get the name of her dad's mistress, Sonia. Then we have Shadi, January's friend, who pops in via text message and sometimes in person. Mm-hmm. You have Anya, January's agent, who is kind of breathing down her neck most of the book, going like, "Did you finish the book yet? Did you finish the book? Did you finish the book yet?
We gotta sell that book. We gotta sell that book."
Man, am I glad I'm not part of a record label where they're breathing down our necks about albums and stuff.
Yeah, really, our failure truly is a relief.
And then my favorite characters in the whole book, honestly, they're of no consequence to anything, but they
have no names. They
have no names. They're just three farting labs.
Yeah, the three farting labs were a good time. Albeit short.
Farting it up.
Yeah, albeit a brief appearance, but
they make themselves known. Let's say
they do. Can't forget those farting labs. All right, so just so for your benefit, listeners, you know what the fuck we're talking about when we start critiquing the book. We will read you a summary of all the main plot points and kind of story beats. So bear with me here. Again, this will be spoiler full. So if you are itching to get your beach read on, maybe skip ahead. Maybe don't listen to this episode until after you read the book. I don't know. Just be aware we're going to spoil the shit out of this in 3, 2, 1, summary. January Andrews is a writer known for romance novels with happily ever after endings. However, after finding out that her recently deceased father was seeing another woman on the side for years and breaking up with her picture-perfect boyfriend Jacques, she's having trouble writing another cute, happy romance. With her agent breathing down her neck to produce one, and having just inherited her dad's secret adultery house in a small Michigan town, she sets out to finish some kind of book by the end of summer. While moving herself into the fuck house, January has a prickly first interaction with the next-door neighbor, whom she does not see the face of due to plot-convenient lighting. Later, while at a small book coffee shop owned by Pete, the first person in town she finds charming, January finds out that her neighbor is none other than Gus Everett, a fellow writer she knew and had a crush on in college. Both Gus and January get invited to Pete's terrible book club. And so does January's dad's mistress, Sonia, who happens to be friends with Pete. January drinks wine out of her purse about it and gets too drunk, so Gus offers her a ride home. They go to a donut shop for coffee to sober up and discover that they're both struggling with writer's block. A little bit later on, they issue each other a writing challenge. Since January tends to write sappy romances, and Gus writes dour, heavy-handed fiction, they must try to write in each other's mindset and see who can sell their swapped genre manuscript to their publishers first. The two go on a series of research trips that are essentially dates in which January tries to show Gus examples of good romance settings, and Gus tries to show January how dark life can be by interviewing people who were involved in a suicide cult that popped up in town. In the midst of this, Gus and January are both cagey and not terribly upfront about their feelings, recent pasts, or even their presents. As a result, both jump to conclusions about the other's intentions, but eventually come around to being more open with each other. Various hijinks ensue, such as carnival people watching, getting caught making out in the back of a car at a drive-in theater, a trip to the Olive Garden, fucking Spectre rises again, and fucking near the burned-out remains of said suicide cult compound. They alternate between becoming closer and pulling apart, when someone decides not to be communicative, like two pendulums knocking against each other over and over until the momentum runs out and the declaration of caring about each other in the rain moment happens. January, meanwhile, gains some closure over her father's death when she reads a series of letters her father wrote to her on every one of her birthdays, which he had been keeping secret until I guess he knew he was gonna die? I don't know. Her dad's mistress gets kind of screwed over on the whole since she can't even keep the patio furniture from the house she and January's dad shared, never mind the house itself. 9 months later, January and Gus have both sold their Switch-style books. They live together over a musical instrument store. Gus proposes to January at their anniversary party with a fucking piece of paper, and they live happily for now.
Oh, that's so cute.
Is it?
Trying very hard to be very cute.
All right. So, if listeners, if you've listened to the show before, you know that Chris and I are generally haters of love and romance.
Okay, well, yes. Well, I want to say something before we get started here, Paris, and this is, I think, a very important point for this episode.
A very important pork?
Yes. It's a very important port for us to go through. I think at this point, you and I have read enough romance novels that we can, I guess, I don't know, legally have an opinion on it, right? Like,
yeah, you have to read at least 10 books in a genre before you can legally actually have an opinion. It's like rock climbing. Once you've climbed 10 things of a certain grade, you can move on to the next grade. Just a rule of thumb. I'm going to use that rule for novels. I would say we've definitely
read at least 10 romance books. Not even just books with a romance subplot in them. You do that, you'll include every other goddamn book in existence, as we have found out.
That's true.
But like specifically romance-based plot lines, we've read at least 10. We've read 4 in the last 2 months on this show, honestly.
Yeah, that was an accident.
Yeah, we're wearing this thin. We're going to be off the romance for a bit, as much as we can, you guys, because it's been But anyway, my point being here is that no longer do we have to couch our opinions in, well, we don't read this that often. I don't know, but we know. We've read enough.
We know. We can have a feeling about this. So anyway, Chris and I don't, we don't really hate romance and love. I was being a bit facetious, but we do generally dislike how it is used in books and popular media, like TV shows and movies and stuff. Just the general conventions in Western media around romance and love tend to make Chris and I everything from disgusted and ill to full of hatred. So, it's a spectrum. Generally not great for us. But when it's done well, it makes us pretty fucking happy. We love when romance and love is handled realistically and well and human-like in books.
Which is hard to do. It is difficult.
It is not easy. We understand that it's not easy. So, with all that being said, let's start with the things that we thought were good in this book. First of all the characters were super believable in here, from January to Gus to Shoddy to January's cheating dad. I mean, everybody seemed like they could absolutely be a real person you could meet at work or at school or on the street or whatever. I was not for 1 minute reading any of these characters and feeling like they were shells or just kind of outlines. Everyone felt very genuine.
Even donut shop owner guy who's sitting there in his underwear and has all of 4 lines in the whole book somehow felt like a legitimately real person. And that's an accomplishment in writing, to get your side characters to feel that way as well. Even peripheral book club members in that one book club scene felt real, not paper thin.
Yeah, everyone really felt fleshed out, like Chris saying, and that is a feat. I mean, think about when we read Hidden Sins last time, right? Like, that story had a lot of great core characters, but many of the characters in the periphery were just, I mean, they could have been anyone. They were not very well sketched out or given enough detail to really make them believable. But here we have success with that. So that was great. I really appreciated that.
Of course, January and Gus are very well fleshed out because you're with them for 80% of the novel. But even Sonia, the mistress, she has a scene essentially where she is trying to say, hey, I'm a whole person too, and I would like to be seen as such. And consideration is given to her position in all of this too. She's not just the evil mistress. Yeah,
and at the same time, you also come to know and understand mom and dad, and you feel for them too in their different perspectives. I think Emily Henry did a wonderful job of making all of the different emotional shades in this book clear, and also make the reader feel as though they could side with any of them, really. Like a very compelling, very compelling emotional shading. Let's go with that. That's how I felt about this.
I even sided with the 3 farting labs.
Oh, yeah. The 3 farting labs, I mean, I was, I just had chili and cornbread for dinner, so like I'm a farting lab.
Completely relating to their journey of sitting on the couch and farting when someone
during
else says something boring.
a terrible book club.
Yes.
I mean, that's one of the only scenes where we see them. So anyway, I'm fine, but
just letting everyone know everything's cool.
I'd like everyone to know that Chris is not
cool
editing
in
out
old Guts Town.
Anyway, so in tandem with these really great character sketches, we also have, in general, really great dialogue and banter. We will talk about a couple of things that were bad and lame later, but overall, the dialogue is very believable. It works. Yeah, Chris, I know you have a couple of examples, so why don't you give your piece on it, and then that was a seltzer popping open. That wasn't a fart.
Thank you for saying that, because I can't edit around you talking as you opened it. Okay. Wait, what person thinks a seltzer can sounds like a fart? Hold on
I just inhaled some seltzer. It was very unpleasant. Oh God, my nose is burning.
What kind of farts are you having from chili if they just sound like that, Paris?
I mean, it's really good chili, clearly. If it's a geyser, then
is your butthole thin aluminum, Paris?
After many hot pepper incidents over the years, I did have to have my asshole replaced. And the most affordable option was thin aluminum. Yeah, who knew?
Okay, well, fair enough.
Aluminium for our European listeners.
Oh, thank you. Anyway, back to the mostly charming dialogue that happens in this book. I have to, there's some bants happening here. People have verbal parries and ripostes and whatnot. It's, for a romance book, that's kind of what you're coming here for. I would imagine that's mostly what you want. And it's kind of makes me upset that it took me to get to this book before I started seeing great examples of it. I guess Late Bloomer had some of that too, but
no, I mean we had good examples. I think even in Hidden Sins, Late Bloomer.
Yeah, Hidden Sins had a couple, but this one had a lot of it.
There were other books. I mean, Bear had some fucking great dialogue around love and relationship. Sure, Anyway, we've seen it before, but not nearly as often as we would like. Sorry.
Anyway, here's a couple of examples. This one of your murder spots? I asked, walking around the car to him. I refused to answer that on the grounds that you might try to take it from me. Solid grounds, I answered. After a moment, I couldn't hold the question in any longer. Doesn't it bother you? Having to live in someone else's tragedy. 5 years. That's a long time to put yourself in that place. Gus tucked the nozzle back into the pump, all his focus on twisting the gas cap closed. Everybody's got shit, January. Sometimes thinking about someone else's is almost a relief. Okay, fine, I said. Let me have it.
I can read the next one if you want.
Sure.
This is January talking about her relationship with her ex-boyfriend Jacques with her best friend Shadi. Once, for my birthday, Jacques took me to New Orleans. We went to all these amazing jazz bars and Cajun restaurants and witchy shops, and the whole time I was texting Shadi about how badly I wished we could be together, drinking martinis and watching The Witches of Eastwick. Gus laughed. Shadi, he said ruefully. I remember Shadi. Yeah, well, she remembers you, I said. So you talk about me. Gus's smile inched higher and his eyes flashed. To your perfectly favorite person, Shadi? You talk about me to Pete, I challenged. He gave one nod, confirming. And what do you say? You're the one who said I could ask anything, I shot back. What do you say? It's strictly need to know, he said. The last thing I told her must have been that we got caught making out at a drive-in theater. I laughed and pushed him away, covering my burning face with my hands. Now I'll never be able to order another pink eye.
So yeah, like cute little dialogue like that, a reference to a joke that was made by another character before because Pete references some kind of coffee she makes as a pink eye when it's really a red eye, I think.
Yeah. Which is just a shot of espresso in coffee. I know because I enjoy it.
Yeah. But like this is the good example of that Twilight conversation that Edward and Bella had about exchanging like questions. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it's the human version of it.
Yeah, instead of, hey, you like Linkin Park? Yeah, I like.
What's your favorite color?
Linkin Park. I like brown.
Brown's cool.
Brown's cool.
It's my turn to ask questions today. What's your mother's maiden name?
Social security number. Street you grew up on as a child. Okay, and first car you owned.
You could just tell by the flavoring of the text here that this is how a normal human conversation would feel.
Right, yeah.
Yes, it's difficult to do, but why did it take this long?
And even there are some descriptions of feelings people have that I thought were just made me immediately understand what the writer was saying and what the character was feeling. So Gus and January in this scene are at Pete's 4th of July party, and they are drinking this very alcoholic blue punch. He was so close that most of his face looked blurry to me, and the smell of the blue punch on his blue lips made my blood feel like it was spiked with pop rocks. And to me, that's a great explanation of, those excitable feelings you get when you're with someone that you like or love, and, they kind of, they make you feel like your blood's got pop rocks. And I just thought that was a really fun description.
This is why we read books, kind of, right? To have these interesting angles shown to us, different perceptions of the same feeling that we know. You've read about being excited about being into someone new before, but we have all these words available to us. Why not be creative about how you use them?
Yeah, I'd much rather read something about my blood being full of pop rocks to elicit feelings of excitement, and love than hearing another person say, "Oh, my breath caught in my throat," and "Oh, my heart." It's like, fucking Christ.
I'm so full of hunger, Paris.
So full of hunger. Yeah, it's like all the same shit. So that's why that stood out to me. And then this is different. This is a section where January is working her way in her own head through Gus and why Gus focuses on kind of more darker subject matter. That was how it always was. He never looked away from any of it. Maybe he thought someone had to bear witness to the dark, or maybe he hoped that if he stared into the pitch black long enough, his eyes would adjust and he'd see answers hiding in it. And I just think that's such a great description and immediately helps you understand, Gus's yearning to try to get something out of the blackness of existence. I just thought it was a good way to put it. It's nothing, I don't know.
Yeah, we're not saying that this is like
but it's
mind-blowing, but just it's good. It's a good example of why you would want to read a book to have some fun and entertainment here. I have something similar, actually.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I had another description that was also about how January looks at Gus, which, by the way, if you're telling a love story from the point of view of someone, of course you would want to have really good, interesting descriptions of the love interest, right? If that's what the character is focused on, you should probably have a bunch of good descriptions about him, like this one. He was always leaning on something, like he couldn't bear to hold all his own weight upright for more than a second or two. He lounged, he sprawled, he hunched and reclined. He never simply stood or sat. In college, I thought he was lazy about everything except writing. Now I wondered if he was simply tired, if life had beaten him into a permanent slouch, folded him over himself so no one could get at that soft center, the kid who dreamed of running away on trains and living in the branches of a redwood. Yeah,
and after you read that, you get a really good mental picture of Gus's posture and how he carries himself, right?
There's a couple good Sonia lines, too, about how January perceives Sonia, someone she dislikes. One of those was, I felt guilty. I knew she'd come here of her own volition. But this couldn't be easy, scraping the muck out of her heart and holding it out to a couple of strangers. For a second, she was stock still and somber, a Midwestern Madonna in a stone pieta, some sacred memory cradled in her lap where we couldn't quite see it.
Yeah, great description. And then there's actually, sorry, one more before we move on. There's this line when Sonia has her one real scene where she actually talks to January, about her dad and their relationship. This one line made me just totally understand Sonia and made me, I just stopped and was like, yeah, that's a great way to put it. So Sonia's talking to January and she says, maybe I wanted someone to understand that I'm a complete person and not just someone else's mistake. She's trying to explain to January that, you know, she's not just her dad's mistress and that the relationship was more complicated than January probably thought. And I just, yeah, it was a really great line of dialogue.
And this is just some of the examples of pretty good descriptions out there. These are particularly notable ones. There's a lot of stuff that's just run of the mill. You know, you got to set a scene in a book and everything, and it's just done technically well, I have to say.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so next thing that we thought was pretty good was whenever January and Gus are getting into sexual scenarios, you know, whether they're fully having sex or whatever, they are both always really good about using contraception. And I feel like...
And like, you don't like directly asking about it is the thing that I was into.
Which is great.
Just using it. Just positing the question.
Yeah, like, but you know, they're making out or whatever, and January just straight up is like, hey, Gus, do you have a condom? And he's like, oh yeah, hang on a second. And like, it happens, I think, 2 or 3 times in the book. And honestly, I know that sounds like a simple thing, but so many romance novels just gloss over it. And then you sit there wondering, like, y'all people spreading infections, getting pregnant, like, what are you doing?
I mean, it's because it's part of like when you're having an adult relationship with someone to ask that, because things pop off, you know, pretty spur of the moment, especially at the beginning of something. Mm-hmm. And it's not terrible to just go, hey, you got something to help us not have a kid because of this right now?
Right. Or like just basic questions like, hey, are you on birth control? Are you know, how do you want to handle this together? And it was just very nice and consensual and considerate and quick. So that was great. I thought it was really good to have that in you know, a best-selling romance book.
Also points to the both of them for after one particular sex scene just immediately going for the snacks in the water afterward.
Well,
I mean,
we disagree on this point because they were going on a backpacking trip, which we'll get to later. But don't worry about it. No, I wasn't saying like, oh my god, he thought to bring it for the sex. I'm just saying the act of like, yeah, I need some water and a snack. Well, I mean, everyone does. Oh, are you saying that it's just not often in books?
Yeah, like you don't see that often.
Yeah.
Just again, adding a little bit of realism to things. We're like, you know, we just exerted ourselves here. We could use some fucking water.
Right. You want some fucking tortilla chips and a fucking swig of whiskey from this flask? Like, okay. Yeah. And on the topic of sex scenes, I think that they're in general better than average. I feel like they're on par with stuff from Hidden Sins where, you know, although I think Chris and I both agreed that the dialogue during the sex scenes is where we see some of the worst dialogue in the book.
This could be our segue point maybe in a bit. Actually, we have one more other point, but we'll get to that.
Chris, you had a great point here about writing a good sex scene.
I have a theory here. It's a hypothesis. I haven't thought it out a whole lot yet. And I think I'm going to have to wait for an action book of some kinds to really put this to the test here. But I think writing a good sex scene is a lot like writing a good fight scene. Because you have to keep track of all these physical movements and bodies moving in space and whatnot. And whose hand is where, who's touching who, are they up against the wall, all that kind of thing. It's very easy to make it mechanical and boring. And you don't want that. But you also don't want to lose track of where people are or what they're doing. And at the same time, it's also nice to keep it fairly exciting with interesting settings or perhaps moves. you know?
I think you're right. And you're I'm gonna say I think you're right for another reason, because you don't want to make it too mechanical, and you also don't want to get like so bogged down in details that it's just like, you know, we're describing, you know, I don't know, someone's leg for fucking 2 paragraphs. Like that's also mind numbing. And we've read some books with sex scenes like that where it just went on forever and it had to describe every fucking pubic hair and every fucking curve of a thigh, and it was just like, oh god, like, you know,
like, that's all. She's hot. Like, I get it.
And I really think this book and Hidden Sins both did a great job with like describing everything sexual without being pornographic and also without being mechanical. So
yes,
good job.
Although this book didn't give us a line on the quality of as the khaki shorts go between them, unfortunately.
Yeah, this one would be more like as the novels tumbled off the bookshelf behind them, which kind of almost happened. So, I mean, and just disclaimer, when we get into the things that were not good section, we will talk about some aspects of their touching and sexual stuff that was bad and weird, but overall it was good. Lastly,
that's my tip: is write your sex scenes like a fight.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're right.
Or write your fight scenes like they're fucking. Either way.
Oh, I don't know if it flows both ways there, but
they're all grunting and everything,
yeah,
making
true.
exclamations. In fact, let's see when we get to talking about the dialogue in the sex scene if we could slot in Gus's dialogue for a fight scene with January.
That's a really good idea. All right, you want to take us to our last good point before we go on?
Sure. The last good thing was that at the end, you might have caught it in our summary. They spend a lot of this book talking about how January writes happily ever after romance endings, and at the end of this book, she's still somewhat anxious about the path she might take with Gus, but she decides to settle in on a mentality of happy for now, which essentially means I'm not going to worry too much about what could come in the future when I'm having a good time now. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a very mature viewpoint to have. Yes, obviously plan for the future a little bit. Don't just, continue completely in the present all the time. But at the same time, thinking about, it's going to get bad later, this is going to go south, is just, it's time and energy wasted.
Or conversely, spending your whole life thinking about getting married and having a wedding and having kids and a white picket fence and 2.5 dogs.
Yeah,
and
even the positive end of it.
Also bad. And I agree with you. Also a fucking waste of time and energy. Yes, you should plan out certain things in your life, but don't get into a relationship with someone and be like, oh, this is doom and gloom, or, oh, this is my fucking Prince chart.
I'm not hitting these particular things that need to be hit at this particular moment. It's either way, you're putting needless pressure on yourself. So
agreed.
I can very much get down with the happy for now sentiment that happens near the end of the book. I came around to this line of thinking in a previous relationship that I had. It was someone that, even at the start of the relationship, that it lasted for years, I knew this person would be moving out of the country eventually, and I would not be following them. So it kind of had a deadline the whole entire time. And I spent a lot of time at the start of the relationship worried about that and trying to sort of prove my worthiness as you will remember me. but it's just time and energy wasted. And eventually I just kind of came around to the idea of just try to enjoy it while it's happening now. You're enjoying yourself now and it's fun. Just stick with that. It's going to suck later. Yes. And it did. But now, time heals all.
Yeah.
I got through it. We all get through it eventually.
All right. So things that were not good. This section is a bit longer, but I don't think that necessarily translates to the book overall being awful. So just don't take it that way. But we do have a list. So
we have nits to pick.
Yeah, we've got some nits. The first
bones to scrape.
Oh. Yeah, I got plot to scrape. Come here, give me your sharp plot bones. All right, so the first... That'll make sense in a moment. So our first issue, honestly, is with the plot and all the plot contrivances and conveniences that make this little fucking beach read swim. It's just too much. It's too much. We have the coincidence of January and Gus being in the same town, living, not only the same town, but living next door to one another. Him being the nephew of the woman who owns the bookstore in town. And then January going to a book club that both Gus is invited to and her dad's mistress. I mean, it's just, and these are just a few of them. There are
How about
more.
Gus's ex-wife walking back in at just the right moments to have a dramatic, right when Gus has to take a couple days away because things got hectic in his relationship with January. And here's his ex-wife at the precise, most dramatic moment. And I get you're trying to make your book exciting, and it has to be dramatic in some fashion. So you're going to have some of these dramatic moments, but you can have that without piling on so many of these dang coincidences that all had to happen at the same time.
Well, yeah, and I'm actually going to argue right now that Naomi, Gus's ex-wife, popping in did not need to fucking happen. It did not make any sense. It felt really shoehorned. Like, oh, we just got to make this dramatic point at the 80% mark of the book, and it's like, why? It just felt it didn't need to be there.
Is that a consequence? Is that a consequence of Gus being so cagey about himself completely through the whole book, where you actually kind of don't get a window into his past? Well, that's what January's complaining about the whole time, and that also kind of makes the whole Naomi thing feel shoehorned in, because you never hear about her until like the last little bit. Yeah,
it didn't feel necessary. I feel like, you know, they could have been executed better. Like, January could have overheard him on the phone with her, or he could have just been straight up with her earlier. I mean, Naomi appearing at a book talk in this little town that she doesn't even live near. It just didn't make sense. There are other ones too, like Shoddy and January both falling for people they'd observed from afar for a while at the same time. When January gets into town, she arrives on Gus's birthday when his friend is throwing a loud party for him. January's birthday is the same day as Pete and Maggie's moving anniversary. I mean, it's fucking absurd. And at that point, I started to think, is the author doing this as like an inside joke of like, haha, how many coincidences can I throw in this romance book? I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it's fucking ridiculous.
Just pick some, like have half of those and it's better. Maybe not fine, but it's better.
Right. For example, it would be one thing if January moves to, you know, the fuck house, whatever, and then Gus is in town visiting his aunt. That would make more sense. Frankly.
I guess, but then we can't have all the cute window note writing scenes, right? They have to be next to each other for that.
Fine, we'll make that the one coincidence then. That they're neighbors. But then fuck off with all the other coincidences because that's a major one and all the other ones are just too much, you know?
Yes.
God.
Even the Shoddy falling in love with someone else at the same time thing, I could have accepted that as like thematic parallel kind of a thing.
Yeah, and also, I mean, you know, they're both young women in big cities. Like, yeah, sure, you know.
It's just, again, on top of all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's like a wedding cake with too many layers and too much sugar. Like, that's what this felt like. It's just all gonna come crumbling down before the ceremony's over. Yeah, oh, that's right, Chris, this book insulted you not once, but twice.
Okay, I wasn't seriously offended by this, so before I go into this, I'm mostly sort of like joking around about this.
I was offended for you on the second one, but go ahead.
That's true. Okay, so in one instance, Pete is talking to January, and she mentions her name, you know, her unusual first name. And she says, "At least you're not named Rebecca or something like Christine or Christy." And I was like, "Oh, okay, so me and my partner are the most generically named people in the world, Rebecca and Chris. I see. I understand, book. Fucking
you're
throwing shade at me and my partner. We're wonderful together, actually."
I agree. That's right. Stand up for the Rebecca and Chris's of the world. In fact, sign the
petition. Just because we're commonly named doesn't mean we're boring.
It's true.
Secondly, when Shoddy shows up in town, she's making a couple of quips at January about like, oh, it's a small town. And then she says, and that the only Uber driver in town seems to be legally blind. I was like, hey, fuck you, lady.
Yeah,
we can't drive. That's the whole point.
I just don't think it's cool to, and like Chris wasn't even mad. I was more pissed about this than him. I just feel like it's not cool to casually use disabilities as a joke. Like I don't know. It's like ableist and not funny.
I shouldn't drive. Let's be like, that should not be a thing I should do. I was more offended on the end of like, okay, if they're legally blind, they wouldn't be able to drive.
Well, the thing is though, it's like, why couldn't you just say the driver was a poor driver and describe it in a different way without having to poke fun at someone who has poor vision? Like, I just hate that shit.
People do that. That's real people shit.
I know, but it sucks, and we shouldn't perpetuate it in media.
That was just my 1 mile away. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm sad that I can't drive.
Yeah, it's just not. I don't know. I just feel like
minor quibble.
She could have said anything else.
Yeah.
You know. Anyway.
All right. Moving on.
There's this whole letter subplot, basically, where January's dad dies, and we actually, I think he just straight up just kicks it for no real reason in his sleep.
Essentially.
Don't really know why. Doesn't seem like they're terribly old, so not totally sure, but he dies, and he leaves January a letter with a key attached to it, and the key, of course, is for the fuck house that she is now living in. And she just doesn't want to read the letter because in her mind, she thinks, this is the last communication I'm ever going to get from my dad, so I want to save it and savor it, when I do read it. So she just sets it aside. And it's been kicking around for, I don't know, like a year now. And eventually, she finally opens it. And the letter says, hey, you should open the safe in the bedroom upstairs. It has more stuff for you in it. And and it tells her that the code is her birthday. So she goes and opens the safe, and what's in the safe but a letter for every year she's been alive from her dad. So every year on her birthday, her dad would write her a letter and put it away, apparently. And for me, it's like it's a cool idea, but I don't know if any parent's brain can really handle that kind of a thing consistently over time. I know a lot of parents, and I don't know if they would have the time to really do something like that and to keep it going for 29 years or 23, 30 years, 28, whatever.
Some parents care, Paris, believe it or not.
No, I'm not saying that they don't care, but I'm saying this is kind of it's something that sounds like a cool idea, but I don't know if anyone would actually keep doing it for 29 years is my point. And secondly, so these letters, so it gets weirder because they're not just letters that are like, oh, I love you so much. This is how you've grown this year. Some of them are that, but mostly they are, these letters are specifically going to be about me telling the truth. P.S. I am having an affair. And it's I don't know if that's what a dad would do.
When was he expecting to hand those over?
Well, he must have planned to give them. He had to have because he had a letter written in preparation for telling her. So I don't know if he knew he might die, or he was just I don't know, I'm getting old, better write this letter with the code on it. I don't know. It just
but there must have been another plan, right? Was it always a dead man switch, or was he going one day? It's oh well, you're 60 now and I'm 90, so here you go. Here I'm revealing my terribleness to you now.
Yeah, she fucking moves the lamp and the safe goes up in flames and acid. And yeah. No, but I just feel it's hard to believe that someone would do that for so long, and then also that the letters wouldn't just be oh, I'm your dad, I love you. It would be I am telling you all the sordid truths of my life. It just seemed like a really fucking contrived way for the main character to get a closure around her father that I think most people wouldn't get, and that it's not realistic to get, unfortunately. And I hate
you could have just made it his journal, right? Couldn't you have just made it his journal?
Yeah, that's true. Could have just been a journal, but anyway. It did feel contrived, and again, I just don't know that. It just seemed like the author was oh, I want to make sure she gets closure, and it's well, but just leave her. She's fine. Make her deal with things like a fucking adult. I don't know.
I guess you had to have this sort of emotional time bomb in this story, right? Because a lot of January's stuff that she talks about for herself emotionally is avoidance of stuff like this.
But she could have just talked to Sonia and then eventually had a conversation with her mother and could have reached the same.
True.
The same.
The emotional time bomb could have just been, I'm going to call Sonia now. Mm-hmm. And ask her directly what it was like to be with my dad.
Yeah, or the Sonia scene could have happened as normal, and then she could have also talked to her mom and gotten collective closure. Yeah, I don't know. I just thought the letters were fucking extra and hard to believe. That's my problem.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to move on to some cringy sex chatter. Oh, boy.
Oh, God. This book might have had some of the most cringy sex chatter.
Yeah, and it's Gus. It's always Gus every time.
Yeah, January is mostly mute, I think. She'll speak up sometimes. She'll ask about a condom, but that. But
Yeah,
Gus is out here going like, God, January, and fuck January, which I can sympathize with.
You're so fucking beautiful. You're like the sun. That's an actual line from the book.
Okay, so I think if I was writing fight scenes of sex scenes, maybe that one wouldn't fit in there.
I want to be your perfect fucking Fabio, January.
That might fit in a fight scene.
Also a real line. And then my last real line that's really bad is, I don't need snowflakes. He kissed me. As long as there's January.
God.
God.
I'm imagining Gus as some kind of like alt-right, like these dang SJWs out here. I don't need no snowflakes as long as I have my January. Definitely can't put that one in a fight scene either, I think. I think actually my theory breaks down over here. You can't trade fight scene dialogue with sex scene dialogue. Maybe you could be like, oh, you're so fucking strong like the sun or something. I don't know.
I don't know. And to be clear, not all of those were during sex. Sometimes it was just when they were like kissing or just together. But just, I don't know. Augustus gets some of the worst fucking lines in this whole book, and they are unforgivable. Whew. Yeah,
they're
those are real
supposed
bad.
to be like cute and adorable and stuff, like romantic. That's what this was supposed to be, right?
But like, I don't know, man. I would never. I just can't imagine saying any of those things or being receptive.
If Tanner came to you and he was like, I don't need to be in Europe because I've got my parents.
Oh, no. Fucking thumbs down. Thumbs down. No. Yeah, nope.
I'm going to tell him to say that to you now.
So, yeah, it's so, and the reason they're like especially bad because the rest of the book has this pretty realistic dialogue and banter between the two characters, but then they start falling for each other and they immediately start making some bad word choices and dialogue choices, and it's
I really don't like
jarring.
The fuck January, like that stuff.
Fuck
I can't.
January. God, January. I mean, I think it's also just because her name has so many syllables, it doesn't roll off the tongue at all. So it's kind of it's just like Jan or Janie or I don't know, man. January is just a hard time.
I'm not usually directly addressing people in those moments either. I'm having a conversation, sure, just like, keeping up on how you're doing and everything, but I don't gotta use your name at you or
I don't know. I mean, like, I understand that.
It's fine. I'm not saying never do it. Like, you can never say my name after like during.
But there's just something especially comical about it in this book when it shouldn't be. Yeah. So yeah, that's our point. Speaking of January fucking Gus, Chris, you want to take us to our next point?
This is a major issue I had with how January reacted to some things in the book. So they've started to fool around a little bit. They have their initial going, like at first they're making out in like a drive-in movie theater, and they actually get thrown out because the I don't know, movie theater usher, drive-in movie theater usher comes in and is like, hey, there's kids here. Hey, there's kids here.
The movie theater guards for some reason.
like
well,
in their armor.
Drive-in.
Stop! You violated the law.
So
pay the fine.
The car field guard.
Yeah.
I don't know. Sorry.
It's the Oblivion guards from the Elder Scrolls. Anyway, so they escalate from that, and of course they start fooling around, and so they have one encounter that seems all well and good, and then a couple of days later, they're at Pete's 4th of July party, I think it is, or something. Correct. And Gus seems a little cagey, and he actually like kind of wanders away for a bit. But before he does that, January basically says, "Hey, you want to meet me in the bathroom?" And Gus knows what she means by this, and then she's really upset when he's like, no, I'm okay, not right now. And she's like, he rejected me. Oh, but like just hours ago, or like just days ago, we were together. How could he reject me now? I don't understand what changed. What changed is that you're at a public party with like 15 or 20 people where people are drinking quite a bit. It's a 4th of July party.
Right.
They're going to want to use that restroom every 20 minutes or so. Also, there's children here, too.
Yeah.
So maybe Gus is just being considerate of the other people at the party where he doesn't want to be like, occupied, and then you're also like, occupied because you got his dick in your mouth. I don't know. Like, don't get so wound up over this, lady.
It was such an unreasonable thing to get upset about, and
like extremely unreasonable.
I mean, and I remember at that point being like, man, fuck January. This sucks. Not to be Gus about
January.
it. Fuck January. But I was just like, how childish to feel like any rejection, even when it's very reasonable. Like, why are you even proposing this? Again, this is a family party with many people. Like, and I gotta say, Chris, I don't know if you remember this, but when me, Chris...
Oh, I remember exactly what you're about to bring up.
Yeah, and Leanne, and I forget if Josh was living there at the time, but we had this whole cadre of folks living in this house when we were all in college, and when... I think was it Leanne's graduation party?
Something like that.
I think so.
There was a lot of her friends.
Yeah, it was our roommate, Leanne, at the time. She had a bunch of friends over for something. I don't remember if it was her graduation or if it was something else, some other
That's
occasion,
not the important detail.
No, she had a bunch of people over, and there were so many people there that none of us knew. And it was kind of uncomfortable. I remember me, Tris, and Chris being like, meh, meh, and like Chris's brother Adam was there too. And we're all like, all right, whatever, let's just have a good time and not worry too much about it. In that house, there are 2 bathrooms. There's one on the first floor and one on the second floor. And so, 2 bathrooms is usually fine, but there were a lot of people there. I want to say there were like 30 or 40 people. It felt like a lot of people anyway. Enough people that both bathrooms were in use throughout the night. And at some point, someone comes and gets me, I think. Or Tris got me, I forget. But somebody's like, hey, we can't get into the bathroom on the second floor. And we were like, what? There's nothing wrong with that door. That's weird. And somebody else is like, yeah, I think some people went in there and the light's off. And I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me. So these people that we didn't even know were in the second floor bathroom having sex, we presume. And we're banging on the door. And I remember me and Tris standing there being like, hey, this is our house and people need to use the bathroom. You need to get your clothes back on and come out. And they still took like a while to come out. And then by the time they did, I remember talking to Leanne and being like, yo, fucking send those people packing. Like, they suck. What the hell was that about? I mean, it's just so inconsiderate, especially when you don't know.
It's a very rude thing to do at a very well-populated party.
Yeah, and also, like, when you don't even know the hosts well or at all. I mean, they must have... I even think that Leanne said she didn't know them. I think this was, like... Weirdos came with a friend of hers and she didn't know that. So it was like total strangers fucking in a bathroom. And we were like, get out of there, you assholes. Oh.
So yeah, that's why it's rude. And then when January brings it up a second time later in the book at a different situation about following Gus into the bath, relax, lady. Jesus.
She's got a bathroom thing.
I think it must be something for her because God. Okay,
yeah, so anyway.
That's that whole thing. Don't fucking bathrooms, people. It's rude. Yeah, unless it's your bathroom at your house and no one else is there.
Right, and it's one thing if you're in a mansion and there's fucking 80 bathrooms and, 20 people there, there's plenty to go around, but, like, you're in tight quarters. You got 1 or 2 bathrooms for a large number of people. Just save it. Fucking save it.
Yeah.
You'll still have the hots later. It's okay. Moving on. So I don't know, Chris, do you want to take a break from sex-related commentary, or do you want to get it all over with now is my question.
Let's do it now because we're on this topic.
We'll get back to our other points, but all right. This author, or January, the main character, not sure, has a thing for bathrooms. This author, obsessed with hip bones. She wants to talk about her hip bones. She wants to talk about Gus's hip bones. She wants to talk about touching, biting, holding, skating, hip bones. Fucking give me all your bones, fee, fi, fum over here on this Michigan lake. Jesus Christ.
They're scraping bones. Things are scraping along bones. That's not a nice feeling. I don't like that. I don't like that. There's a reason I have a type, and it's because bones hurt. Is why. But it's the skating too. It's like, why is everything is skating on hip bones all the time? Like Gus has a little finger tech deck that he's just doing kickflips and ollies off of her on or something. That verb is used so many times.
So a reference to hips happens 45 times. 45 times, people. That is too many times
to be
talking about hips.
Can you give me how many skating or
how many
skates?
Yeah, hang on. Please hold.
How many kickflips is he pulling?
How many kickflips? We've got 9 versions of skate or skated or skates, which personally I think is too many times. Yeah,
I mean, but just that's a lot of times to be using the same verbiage, and it's always about across hip bones is what makes it worse.
It's always about hip bones or ribs. Oh God, there's actually, speaking of fucking fee fi fo fum shit, there's a moment where Gus is tracing the edges of her ribs, and I was like, ugh, it sounds uncomfortable and also unhealthy. Like, I don't know, the thought of someone lightly touching the edges of my bones, it just makes my insides like clench and it just makes me feel weird.
No, thank you.
No thanks. I guess if that's for some people, that's fine. Just struck me as odd.
We're not bone shamers here.
No.
That's my fantasy mage class is the bone shamer.
And like,
severely anti-sex mage.
Bone shamer. I mean, and like Gus may as well be like a torso and a head, because the only stuff she ever says about how attractive Gus is, like January just hyperfixates on his face, like his smile, dimples, and other facial characteristics, which I get. I mean, the face is very important. I understand that. But it's always the face or the flat stomach. And I just, can we get some love for like some nice backs, nice legs? Maybe can we get some love for a dude who doesn't have a flat stomach or 6-packs or whatever? I don't know. It's just this obsession with the flat stomach and it's just, I don't
think it ever mentions him directly having like a 6-pack or anything. I think he's
that's why I said flat stomach, Chris. That's why I said flat stomach. I said or a 6-pack because that's also common in romance novels. But like,
I actually kind of like the description of Gus in regards to this. I have it here. It says, sure, he was just barely on the tall side of average with the lean muscle of someone who never stopped moving around, but also never intentionally exercised. A lazy kind of fit that came from genetics and restlessness rather than good habits. But it was more than that. I think that's actually a pretty good descriptor. That's another good example of a decent way.
But that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about her. She's only ever really fixating on those 2 things about him, and I just thought that was kind of odd. Like, I don't know. I feel like if you are attracted to someone or love them, you're going to think about more than just their stomach and face.
Yeah, fair. I'll agree with you there.
I don't know. I thought it was a little odd that she didn't really ever go beyond that.
I do want to commend the author. I don't think the word or phrase he was perfect is ever used, or like he has the perfect body or something like that, which you do see in a lot of other romancy things. And I just want to say, okay, thank you for that. Making it clear that this is January's preference more than anything.
Well, Gus does call January perfect.
He calls her perfect because that's such a fucking cringe dude line to do, but her to him never happens.
True.
Which I appreciate. Also, she's never bringing up like, penis size or anything like that either, which is also
that's true. I will say that was fucking merciful. Something, Chris, that you brought up was that despite the pretty competent writing throughout the book, there are some unfortunate repeated phrases. Like we just talked about how skate is used 9 times and it just felt a little heavy-handed, or the use of that felt a little heavy-handed.
I had one phrase that for me, it hit worse because it occurred very rapidly. There was one paragraph where it happens 2 or 3 times in a row. And it was a description about January's life or her emotions being torn in half. It happens very quickly, one after the other. And I think for a book that usually does a pretty good job of having decent descriptions of things, having a similar thing like that happen so quickly is a little jarring when it's something that it looks like a half an hour of rethinking one of the lines would have helped you out. When it seems like effort was put into the rest of it, why not kind of fix that in editing as well?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that personally, but I agree. You know, if it's, we don't need torn in half a bunch of times when there's other ways you could say that. Personally, I think Gus should join Cirque du Soleil because he is a tear juggler extraordinaire. Let me tell you, every single time January cries, he's kissing or catching or wiping or fucking caressing a tear, and it just gets silly.
He's skating on those tears.
Oh, got his tech deck on, scooping up the tears. Yeah. I mean, and it's mentioned so often in single scenes. Actually, when they're in the tent at the cult camp, which we're also going to talk about.
That's going to be like the last point I think we're going to have to bring up here.
Yeah, let me see if I can find the fucking tent tears. I just read his palm skated up. Ah!
The whole palm, like just dragging against her skin.
Like petting a cat real hard. January, no. Gus roughly cupped the sides of my face, holding my tear-filled gaze to his. Not at all. He kissed my forehead. It wasn't about you, not even a little bit. He kissed my tear-streaked left cheek, caught another falling tear with his mouth on my right. He pulled me in against his chest and wrapped his arms around me, covering me with rain-dampened heat as he nuzzled his nose and mouth against the top of my head. I feel so stupid, I whimpered. I thought you really... I do, he said quickly, drawing back from me. January, I didn't want you here today because I knew it was going to be hard. I didn't want to be the reason you spent a whole day in a torched-out graveyard. I didn't want to put you through this, that's all. He brushed some hair behind my ear, and the sweetness of the gesture only made my tears fall faster. But you didn't want me at Pete's either, I said, voice breaking. You invited me, and then we slept together, and you changed your mind. You didn't take me into the bathroom. Sorry, that's not in there.
Really what she's crying about, though. That's really what she's crying about.
It is part of it. His mouth juddered into a look of open hurt. I wanted you there, he all but whispered. And when a fresh tear slipped down my cheek, he caught it with his thumb. Again, we've got 4 fucking tear juggling moments in this, like, 2 paragraphs. It's just...
I must have all of them.
Like, it would be fine if it happened in one scene. It would feel meaningful if he was, like, kissing or wiping her tears away. But it happens, like, 3 or 4 times.
In this one scene, he's catching many of them.
Yeah. And
as if they're a precious resource for him. No, don't. You're losing moisture. They're on fucking Arrakis, Paris, and she cries.
Yeah. Well, you know what? They didn't have any fucking supplies with them on this camping trip from hell.
Yeah,
so maybe you're right.
This one. This is the point where we should go to this.
All right. Who taught these idiots how to hike and camp? Like, I'm not even kidding. They hiked for several hours, meaning 3+ hours, to this burned out sex cult campground. And then they ended up sleeping in the tent there in the pouring rain. And it seemed like all they brought was a tent, some tortilla chips, and 2 flasks. This is what is mentioned for supplies. They've got some
Cliff Bars. They've got some Cliff Bars.
Oh, I'm sorry. Cliff Bars, tortilla chips, a tent, and 2 flasks. Like, did y'all have sleeping bags, sleeping pads, pillows, 2 tarps, blankets, water, anything for being alone in the woods overnight? A lamp? A bear can? Because you are in the wilderness, and if a bear fucking smells your goddamn Cliff Bars, you're gonna die? Like, y'all should have fucking died with your flasks and tortilla chips in your fucking tent. I was so mad about that.
Okay, that's one thing to be mad about in this, but this is like kind of like, as you could guess from the tear scene right there, it's a little bit of the emotional climax of the book, like one of them, let's say. Mm-hmm. But so Gus has taken January to the burnt out remains of the cult compound for his
3-hour walk into the woods after they drove 3 hours.
Yes,
I think.
Yes. There is a line where Gus is like, "That's the trailer where the children burned to death."
Sorry.
And then they set up the one small tent they have like a little bit, like a couple of feet away, and they have sex in it. Paris, I don't know about you, but like having to push out the thoughts of like, and this is where all the cult members burned themselves alive, as well as the children. I would be a little. I would have some problems, maybe.
There's an amazing note that we both basically. Well, you made it before I did. But yeah, let me go to it. So they're fucking in the tent, and January says, in her mind, the rain fell around us, and I let go of everything that wasn't Gus, wasn't this moment. And Chris made this incredible note that was, I especially tried to block out the thoughts of children burning alive in a trailer not too far from here.
I mean, like, it's horrendous, but like, come on, guys.
I mean, it's true though. Like, you're already in this absolutely devastating place. It's the middle of the night, pouring rain. You have no supplies. Why are you like, this is the time for sex? Like, I guess maybe it's like,
gotta keep warm somehow.
To those about to die, I fuck you. I don't know. Like, I'm not really sure, but it did.
It's just like fucking ghosts of dead children floating around there, just going, oh shit, I didn't expect this to happen over here.
Yeah, it was just it was a strange choice.
There's kids here, Paris. They keep doing it with there's kids around.
Yeah, just a strange choice is all. I just really think
ghost
that
children here, you two, please.
Fucking cult matron ghost is like, excuse me, in the tent. Just because we're dead doesn't mean we can't see you fucking in there.
Excuse me, boo. Boo. Run now, please.
All right, summon the bears.
Okay, yeah, that's. We had a lot of problems with that particular scene.
Sorry, we do actually still have a couple more points. So kind of like what we were saying about how the letters were sort of this, like, I don't know, overly contrived device, and how, so she could have just, there could have been fewer coincidences, and I just would have felt a bit more organic. That book club scene was really unnecessary.
Yeah,
for a variety of reasons.
Didn't have to happen. It was a terrible book club scene.
Like right at the beginning, there's this plot convenient lighting on their decks, so January can't see that it's Gus she's talking to in that first night.
Even though she was obsessed with him in college and had a huge crush on him, she doesn't recognize his voice or the side of his face or
even though a few pages after she says, I would never forget his voice. Then which is it?
Oh, really?
Would you never forget his voice, or did you forget his voice, January? So I just feel like A, she might recognize his voice. B, how is the lighting so bad on the porch in the house? Like, how are you not just at least trying to look at the person you're talking? Anyway, similarly, there's this book club scene where, sitcom like, where she and January and Gus and Sonia are all there. That's the fart and lab scene. And it's like, it just doesn't need to happen. Like, there's no reason that January and Gus could have just realized they were neighbors and struck up a friendship, or they could have both been in the bookstore at the same time because he's Pete's nephew and she goes to the book and coffee store all the time. Like, it was like this whole extra chapter thrown in there. I was like,
they could even still have a contentious initial relationship, right? Because he has the loud party and everything, and she's me, and like he could just turn around and she could be like, oh, it's Gus. Oh, okay. And like that's enough reason for her to like kind of keep coming back. Plus, they're literally right next to each other, so there's a reason for them to interact a little bit more. They could have been forced to talk more together at the coffee shop by Pete going like, oh, have you met Gus? He's a writer too, and then she has to have a conversation with him. She doesn't like him at first, but he's actually kind of charming a little bit, like he was in the coffee shop scene. You could have done it similarly. She
could have needed a cup of sugar. She could have needed a fucking lawnmower. Like, there's just all these other ways that didn't require a whole extra chapter or two of a book club scene. I don't know.
I think it was specifically so Gus had to drive her to the donut shop and she had to stay with him for an hour to get over her dislike of him. But if you had a crush on him in college, and you still kind of do, you'd probably still kind of get over it a little quickly.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean, I guess that's just our, I don't know, just something we both felt.
Yes.
Something that I feel is a little worse, though, is that the book starts with January descending into alcoholism, and then that plot point just vanishes and is never addressed again.
She just replaces it with Gus.
She just magically, gets cured of alcoholism by dating Gus, and that is not a great message. I didn't really love that. I just thought, she moves into this house, she brings a whole box of gin, she's drunk as fuck like the first night she's there, and then when she gets nervous at that party, she literally just starts drinking an entire bottle of wine. She just chugs like a good half the bottle in the bathroom and then puts it in her purse to keep drinking. But then that plot point just is abandoned. What?
It's kind of like a silly reference later. Like Gus is like, "Oh, you're gonna drink more purse wine?" She's like, I guess so. Like, that's it.
You can't just leave us dangling with the alcoholism. I feel like that's a pretty key point. And honestly, if January had to work through that, it would have made this book a little more compelling.
Maybe it got lost in an edit or something.
Yeah, I don't know. And there's also this moment towards the very end where January finally figures out that Gus's best friend is a woman. And she just acts like a fucking child about it. Oh, his best friend is a woman? Oh, heavens, no. And there's like a lot of pearl clutching.
He might not really like me.
It's very strange.
Instead. Like, no, he's been friends with her for a while. In fact, she's his divorce attorney. So, probably like, I think we're particularly sensitive about this because being opposite sex friends, and it's, seems very easy and natural to us because, hey, you're just friends with people that you're friends with, right? Why does it have to be anything different?
Well, and I think I was also bothered by it, not just because of that, but because in general, January is pretty mature throughout the book, but then at the end, she just kind of like dips into all this weird immaturity. Yeah, like being mad about, oh no, you're not going to fuck me in the bathroom at a party, and oh no, your best friend's a woman, and where this and where that. I don't know, she just gets real immature, and perhaps this was a choice. I'm guessing this was a choice made by the author, but I don't know, it just was a little...
I mean, no one's ever completely adult about their emotions all the time, right?
Sure, but it just came off as kind of annoying and uncharacteristic.
Yes, I will agree on that point, but just playing momentary devil's advocate.
Yeah, it didn't seem like a natural evolution of the character. It seemed like it was just kind of added in there to give some drama, much like Naomi just showing up at the book show or whatever that was, the interview. All right. Sorry, y'all. Last thing.
Yeah. The last thing is the ending of this book, which is just, your classic Gus and January have been kind of having a rough time because they're being caged with each other. But then it's raining and Shoddy has come over for January to sort of unload upon. But then Gus is finally knocking on the door and say, January, I care about you a lot. Come out in the rain and we can make out in here in the rain and it'll be romantic and cute.
And then he blasts like Bon Jovi or something and they dance in the rain. I forget what it is. U2. No, Sinead O'Connor. Sorry, that was a real journey.
It's Nothing Compares to You, which is, oh, wow, so fucking original, Gus.
Yeah.
Oh,
and then...
then it's like, oh, it's 9 months later, and they've moved in together above a musical instrument store, which is a special kind of hell.
Yeah, I wouldn't wish that upon anyone.
There's people that live above my job where I teach guitar, and I feel bad for them. But hey, you chose. Yeah. In any case, after they're moving in together, and it's their anniversary, and Gus proposes to January with a piece of paper, like the notes they wrote to each other through the windows of their opposite side decks or something. And they live happily for now. Like, so my major problem with this is that for a lot of the book, Gus is he's not really giving January shit, but like January's more giving herself shit for like writing, always have cliche happily ever after endings. And so that's what you give January in this book too. To just like to prove like, oh, well, you really can have a happily ever after if you have a letter from your dead dad unloading his emotional burdens upon you, and so you can have closure about it. I don't know, like.
Also, if you're a generally well-to-do white person with generational wealth and opportunity.
An extra house that your dad gave you,
dude,
to sell.
Yeah, this isn't in our notes because I guess I forgot to write it in there, but I did in one of our early conversations with the book, I did tell Chris that I did feel that it was hard to sympathize with the characters struggling because January's whining about like, oh no, I don't feel comfortable living in my apartment, or like I moved out of my apartment with my ex and I don't have anywhere to go, but like her mom lives by herself and is well off, and then her dad is like, don't worry, you can live in my fuck house, and just gives her a whole ass house that she can use to sell everything inside of it and the house itself to make money or have a place to live. And I'm like, I don't feel bad for you at all. Yeah. I just don't. And then same with Gus. Gus had a hard childhood. Seems like his dad was abusive and his mom died when he was young. But I guess he struggled. He was like a grave digger in college, or he has this weird backstory. But then his aunt, Pete, actually is like, oh, don't worry, here's a down payment on a house. And bought him a house in the one he lives next to, January. And then I'm just like, isn't it nice to be white and have generational wealth in your family? Yeah. Anyway, just sorry. And then at the end when they're like, oh no, we're struggling, I'm like, motherfuckers, you both just sold books to big publishing houses.
You're doing fine.
Like, you're fine. Which is why when he proposes to her with a piece of paper and not a ring, I'm like, didn't you just make a shit ton of money? I'm confused.
And to be fair, Paris isn't even like you must have a diamond, or like you're fine with any old ring. I guess you're semi-traditionalist in that sense, but
well, no, I'm not saying that you need a ring to propose, but when you have these like people that are pretty well off, it's like, why wouldn't you have something? I mean, and there's nothing in the book establishing that January doesn't want that. So it just was like a little like, okay. I don't know. Again, I'm not saying you need a fancy ring. I'm not saying that that's the important part of being engaged and loving someone, but it came off as weird when you have people who could very well afford it.
Yeah, and
not
again,
do that.
Our broader problem with the ending is just exactly how cliche it is, especially when this book has some discussion questions at the end of it, which we sort of touched upon here and there. But the leading one is, in what ways does Beach Read follow common romance tropes? In what ways does it deviate from or subvert them? I'm like, bitch, what got subverted at all in here?
Yeah, I know. Like, other than the use of a condom,
maybe better than average dialogue, I suppose, but not all the time.
Yeah, I mean, again, it wasn't an overall awful book, but it's certainly not something I certainly didn't have a good time. I mean, it's not for me.
I thought again, we're not romance fans, but if you want a good romance novel, I guess if someone asked me, I would recommend this. Like, hey, try this one out. It's not bad. There's some pretty good chemistry happening here.
I would not recommend
this. And, sticking to genre conventions isn't a bad thing if it's well done. And I think this is probably a good example of that for romance fiction. But I don't know, when you're leading off with a question like, how did it subvert? It kind of feels like you want me to like say, oh, yes, this is different from other. It's not. It really isn't.
I might take that back. I might recommend this, but only to someone who was like, I would like to read a current romance book. I would be like, well, here you go. This one is fine.
Again, sticking to genre conventions can be fine. I'm a huge fan of the Black Dahlia Murder, a death metal band that does not do anything necessarily super remarkable in terms of pushing the envelope, but they're pretty great at that style, and I'll keep listening to their records because it's just consistently, that's pretty good. Like Cannibal Corpse too. I'm sure Paris you can agree with on the Cannibal Corpse front. They're just kind of out there like, there's some death metal riffs. Pretty good.
I don't know. I've never been into Cannibal Corpse, but yeah, I don't know. I could, sure. I get that.
I'm sure you have some examples of like, hey, there's this band that it's not like they're doing anything new or crazy, but hey, it's good.
Anyway, I would like to say that, Chris, I have I have a confession for our listeners today.
Uh-oh. I don't even know about this.
So, I know I'm the reigning queen of hating love and romance. And I just went on a rant about how, you don't really need a ring and all that stuff, but I am loath to report that I have recently become engaged myself in the real world. Obviously not really loath to report, but I'm sure that strikes many of you as odd, having listened to me rant and rave about my hatred of love for the last 6 years. But
you excitedly sent me a picture of a ring and everything.
I did. Yes, I was proposed to with a ring. But I did. It's
I believe
something.
Wasn't it also on an anniversary date?
Yeah, it was our anniversary. It was in front of a waterfall.
You cliche bitch. No.
It was in front of a waterfall in an arboretum.
It was all high and mighty about her romance cliches. How the turns tabled.
Well, it's because the person who proposed to me, my fiance, that still feels weird. I don't know how that word just sounds like I'm trying to be cool. I'm just still going to call him my boyfriend. I don't know. He's just going to be my boyfriend, I guess, until whenever we get married. But yeah, Tanner is quite the romantic. So that explains that. But, we had talked about it. Pro tip, folks, don't fucking surprise someone with an engagement if you've never talked about getting married. That is not a good thing to do. Mm-hmm. You want to, have that discussion at some point. You can surprise them. I was surprised, but anyway, yay.
So you're a giant hypocrite.
I'm a giant hypocrite. You can throw me into the fires of literary hell where I belong. But yeah.
I guess that's the point. When you like the person, with the cringe stuff they do isn't cringe to you, right? That's really... So like the outside observer, it might be a little lame.
I don't think any of it was.
Yeah, because
well,
if you had a scene in a book where they got proposed to in front of a waterfall on their first year anniversary date, you might be a little bit cliche.
Well, it depends on the context, right?
I guess
if it's written in like a la-di-da, oh my god, they did this, like, yeah, fuck that. If it's written in a very like traditional kind of typical romance way, yeah, but if there's more context around it, like, hey, this place had a lot of meaning to one or both of them, and
the piece of paper was because they wrote notes on pieces of paper back and forth. That was the significance, Paris.
I know, but I still hated it.
Okay, I'm sorry. I feel like I had to give you some shit about that.
I know. No, I mean, I'm giving myself shit. I'm the one who I was like, fuck, I gotta confess. I gotta tell everyone. Also, this is airing months after I was engaged, but I just couldn't. I had to come clean, y'all. I fucking,
Did he declare his love for you in the rain?
It was misty out, I will have you know. No, there were some very
Paris, I'm gonna find out that you fucked in a tent next to a suicide cult next, and
no, that has never happened.
No, it was a sex cult. They were all alive.
No, neither of those things happened. But anyway, yeah, I just needed to come clean about how, I'm still an asshole about romance and love, but I have my own secret romance and love that I just experience on my own time. Anyway, yay. All
right, Paris, can we fix this?
Can we fix this? I mean, Chris, I think you kind of got it. I'll let you roll with your assessment of can we fix it.
I mean, less corny sex chatter, cut the book club scene, have them just meet when the whole loud party thing happens, or have Gus and January end up getting to know each other just from sheer proximity. Pete knows both of them. She shows up to his house, and January thinks it's weird she's there, but she looks like she knows Gus, and she forces them to hang out by insisting January sit with them or something. Maybe don't fuck in a tent near a burned out death cult campground.
Yeah, that's a pretty big one.
That's another one. And if you're going to do the cliche ending, don't lay it on so thick with the professing love in the rain and then the anniversary. Just, one or the other. Just like pick one cliche thing. Otherwise, I don't think it needs much fixing. The chemistry here is fine, which is, I'm assuming, what you come to a romance for. And it's kind of disappointing to me that I didn't feel this way for a lot of the other books. Even Hidden Sins, I really didn't feel the chemistry level to be as high as these two. So I don't know. For me, this one has been better than most. This is fine. I say as the trailer burns down around me.
I mean, I feel like I don't know. I feel like it's kind of hard. In some ways, it's difficult to compare them because Hidden Sins was way more about the adventure and mystery and thrill of the action. And there was this romance subplot, or maybe co-plot. I don't know.
I would say co-plot.
But here, there's nothing exciting going on. It's very slice of life kind of thing. Just interpersonal relationships and nothing else. But I don't know. I think both Hidden Sins and this had good relationship building and genuine dialogue and interaction between the two main characters. I don't think I would say one was better than the other, although this one, Beach Read did much better with accessory characters than Hidden Sins.
Yes, agree.
Yeah.
All right,
yeah, I mean, I agree with everything you said. I don't know. Yeah, I still feel like I almost feel the same about it now than I did before I even read it. Like, nothing about my impression changed. It was kind of what I thought it would be.
Yes.
So I don't know. If you're into kind of cookie cutter modern romances, this is for you. But if you don't like that, I would say if you tend to fall more along the lines of me and Chris, then I would say don't read this. But if you are a romance person and you want a modern one that's, maybe
perhaps
better done
than
most. Yikes. Yeah. Okay. Well, I really don't want to read romances for a while. So
yeah, I'm done.
Kind of done with that. Alrighty, folks. Well, with that,
it's time to thank the patrons.
Thank our patrons. Thank you to Dari, Greg, Veronica, Will, D, Jared, Lynn, Sinya, Yakub, Bobby Blackcat, Jensina, Lycoris, Elliot, Kieran, Martin, Jay, Scott, Luchek, CTAP1, Miri, Yanka, Robert Allen Cook III, David, Julius, Anya, and Anonymous. Thank you all. That list is getting so long that I can't even remember it anymore. Thank you all so very much. If you also would like to support the show, you can subscribe to us on YouTube or watch a couple of videos, leave a comment, like something. You can also donate money to us on Patreon in exchange for some video footage of us, Mystery Science Theater style commentary on bad TV and movies, outtakes, and other random audiovisual weirdness. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Goodreads if you're on those platforms. Oh, wait, are we on TikTok now? We're on TikTok.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still trying to learn the ropes here, so maybe by the time this comes out, I'll have figured it out.
So we've perhaps ticked but not talked.
Yes.
We're just kind of barely on there. All right. Most importantly, though, we'd really love if you just shared the show on social media and told at least one person about it. And please keep those reviews coming, and we will read them on future episodes. If you would like to contact us, I was going to say personally, but if you'd like to contact us both, you can send us a message on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Goodreads, or Patreon, or you can send an old-fashioned email to terriblebookclub@gmail.com.
Emails are old-fashioned now.
No, they're not really. Well, I guess if you take into account the rapid pace of technology, yeah, I guess a little bit.
We also recently did a guest appearance on Sweet Valley Diaries, a podcast dedicated to reading through the Sweet Valley High book series with Marissa Flaxbert. So you can check us out on the latest episode 57, Teacher Crush. You can find that on pretty much any podcatcher app, just like you can find us. So just hit the search bar in your favorite podcatcher app and look for Sweet Valley Diaries, episode 57, and all the other episodes, because it's a pretty fun time. All right, well, that'll be it for us this time. I think next time around, it's going to be an extra fun episode of Terrible Book Club / Antiques Freaks.
Yeah, I think we're getting freaky with those antiques again. And, we're going from beach read to what's beyond the beach, the ocean. What's in the ocean? Boats. That's all I'll say.
What's on the boat? You'll find out.
It'll be a fun one. We're doing another Antiques Freaks crossover, so make sure you tune in 2 weeks. And until then, we hope that you are reading good books on the beach wherever you are. We hope you're enjoying, a summer vacation, summer break, what have you. And we'll see you next time.
Bye, Paris.
Goodbye, Chris.